Hello and welcome to the programme. Now, after Russia seized 3 Ukrainian ships with crews near the Kerch Strait on November the 25th, the number of Ukrainians illegally held behind bars in Russia and occupied Crimea continues to grow, and it's grown to almost 100 people. So what can Ukrainian civil society do to support the Kremlin's prisoners? Now, pleased to say, to talk more about this, we're joined in the studio today by Lesia Vasylenko, the chairperson of the Legal 100 NGO. Hello, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So can you tell us a bit more about the campaign or the action that's taking place to really support these prisoners who are being held?
Sure. So the action was organized basically very fast, last week even, by several representatives of civil society, also with the support of the Ministry of Informational Policy. And the idea was for Ukrainians, for civil society, to show support to the prisoners of war who are held at this moment illegally by the Russian Federation. So we have chosen to take the path similar to that which was during the Vietnam War in the United States, where rubber bands with the names of prisoners of war held in Vietnam were worn by Americans all over the country to show support, to show that the names of those held in captivity are not forgotten. So during this event, which will be tonight, starting at 7 p.m. on the Maidan Square, we will be handing out bracelets, rubber bands, with the names of the 24 sailors who are held in Moscow in the prisons right now, as a sign to show that their names are not forgotten, that they are remembered, that Ukraine is with them, that Ukraine is waiting for them to come home. In addition to that, there will be also an opportunity to write letters or to bring cards and letters of support to these sailors, which are going to be sent to them or transferred to them. We have not yet decided the best way to do this, but in any case, we hope that the words of support of the Ukrainian nation are going to be forwarded to the prisoners of war.
Yeah, I think actually this is so important as well on 2 fronts, because firstly, the letters that you send to these prisoners of war, often it's a reminder to them that they're not forgotten. And obviously we have the captured sailors, 24 of them at the moment, but we have more high-profile figures such as Oleg Sentsov. There's been a lot of movements to send letters to him and other prisoners as well, but also for ordinary people not to forget about these prisoners. And actually, near to where I live, near a shopping centre, there's a big banner that says "Free Oleg Sentsov." And I thought this is such a great idea. So what sort of strategies are there? You mentioned the rubber bands, but what other strategies are there to raise awareness of these political prisoners?
Okay, so what we will be using is also the banners, as you have mentioned. So during our action, you will see namely a huge banner with the 24 names of the 24 sailors who are prisoners of war, and they are officially considered to be prisoners of war. In addition, there will be photos of the other political prisoners in Crimea, in the occupied territories and in the Russian Federation, which will be held up by activists. There will be a number of banners designed specially to draw attention to Russian aggression and to the prisoners of war which have resulted from this aggression. So all of this is to draw attention, as you said absolutely correctly, from the Ukrainian civil society and the Ukrainian nationals, but also to show the world what is going on. So we hope that this is going to be one of the first actions, civil actions, but that it will spread across the world, and that the Ukrainian diaspora and also nationals of other countries will join in similar peaceful protests in front of the embassies and other diplomatic representative bodies of the Russian Federation, with similar posters, similar banners and similar rubber bands.
And what sort of a role does the Ukrainian diaspora play and these international organizations in helping your efforts to raise awareness of the Kremlin's prisoners?
At this moment, we have invited I think over 30 different diplomatic missions and representatives in Ukraine. In addition, international organizations such as NATO and some representatives of different UN bodies which are located here in Ukraine. The acting Minister for Foreign Affairs is going to be present today during this action. And to my knowledge, actually, several similar events have already held place in certain countries in Europe at least. But we are hoping that this is going to become a mass movement, and throughout January that more events of the kind will be held, and also with the support of the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ukrainian communities in foreign countries.
Yeah, and there's still efforts to release, or to get Russia to release these prisoners of war. But I think what's also interesting is when these prisoners come home, your organisation, the Legal 100, provides a lot of support for them, because actually often they feel like they're left in the wilderness, they don't know where to turn to. So can you tell me a bit more about your organisation and the scope of activities that you're involved in?
Sure. So the Legal 100 has been established officially since 2015, but unofficially we've been working as a project since summer 2014. And initially the organization was directed to provide support, legal aid essentially, to the wounded, injured in combat, and also to families of the deceased. But as the war progressed, and we have this kind of category of people who are now called combat veterans, we started providing support to all of them. So at this moment in time, by calling into our hotline, which is 0800 308 100, people can get advice from lawyers. So usually who calls in is combat veterans, is active soldiers, also family members, and essentially they ask questions about the kind of support that they are eligible for from the government, so social benefits, medical care, psychosocial support, all those kind of things. And what we do is we give them the information required, and we give them step-by-step guides as to how to proceed to get the benefits to which they are entitled to. And if problems arise, we then try to fix them up with lawyers who can go ahead and stand up for their rights and interests in court.
Yeah, and I found it astounding on your website. You have a presentation, and the latest statistics on the website suggest that every month you have an average of 1,500 callers.
Yes.
So actually, it seems like a huge problem, really.
It is, but it's also because the more people find out about the organization, the more people call in. So what we do is we publish booklets, informational booklets, which are more like books actually, to be honest right now, with the description of the different rights and the procedures of how to get them. And at the back, there's the 0800 number, which people can call in. And the more booklets get distributed, the more active is the feedback and the calling in. So essentially, when we started working, we didn't have the necessary financial support, and so the printing capacities were much less. Now the printing capacities have increased. So the more people find this useful information, they go ahead and they do what they can on their own. But then when problems arise because of bureaucratic, for example, barriers or of other issues, they call in to seek advice as to how to overcome the difficulties they face when trying to get the benefits from the government.
Is this one of the most common complaints in the bureaucracy?
One of definitely the bureaucracy, the lack of political will at local level. Also, sometimes some benefits, they require budget support from local or national budgets, and that's not there. So what we do with those issues is we take the problem, we study it, and then we suggest some form of legislative amendments, and we advocate for legislative reforms in order to make veterans' lives better.
And can you give an example of this, one of the legislative reforms that you're campaigning for?
Sure. So at this moment, the hot topic for our organization is the draft law number 3433, which deals with giving a status to the foreign nationals who were fighting in the east for Ukraine. So, for example, people were coming in, especially in 2014, from Russia, from Belarus, who are ethnic Ukrainians, for example, or for other reasons, but they are nationals of those countries, and they fought for Ukraine. They fought in the battalions in Ukraine. And then, for example, they got injuries which disabled their further participation in combat. And when the law was signed for foreigners to be able to sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense, they were unable to do so, but they still remain in Ukraine. They remain in Ukraine often at this point on an illegal basis, which basically puts them on the risk of being sent out to their countries of origin. Yeah. And in Russia and Belarus, for example, all of these people, they're already signed off as criminals with the...
so they have nowhere to go back to.
They have nowhere to go back to. But under the legislation of Ukraine, they are eligible to be deported back to their home countries. This is something which is unfair to the people who have fought for Ukraine, who have given up part of themselves for Ukraine, literally. Right now, it is only fair that this problem gets fixed. And this is a piece of legislation which we hope that will be passed in the second hearing already during this week.
Yes,
in the Rada.
Well, I think I've run out of time. Thank you so much.
Okay,
and sounds like you have a great project, and congratulations on all the work that you're doing. And hopefully we'll have you back in the studio soon to talk more about them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Lesia Vasylenko, the chairperson of the Legal 100 NGO. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more.